You've come a long, long way. You're not alone anymore. Come sit with me and tell me your story. You've come a long way, girl. Pulled yourself out of quite the mess. Those were some dark times back then, but it's all over now. You're not alone anymore. Come sit with me and tell me your story. This is Truckin' with Tamie, where your journey's heard and your voice is free. You're not alone, come share your story with me.
Good morning and welcome back to Truckin' with Tamie. My name's Tamie. Today I am proud to announce we have an amazing guest on our show, Brigitte Belton. If you don't know her, she's a Canadian truck driver, activist, author, and she is widely recognized as one of the early sparks behind the 2022 Freedom Convoy. So Brigitte, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tamie. And I have to say, your intro song just like knocks it out of the park.
Thank you. I wrote that. I wanted it to be very personal and kind of highlight the premise behind the show. So us women having a voice is very important, I think.
Especially in the trucking industry. We're so small.
We are. And you know, our numbers are dwindling and I hate that. So hopefully we can spark a woman out there to brush out and get her CDL and come join the journey with us.
Well, don't rush. Do it right.
Right. Yeah. Don't rush. Definitely don't rush. You can rush to the school, but don't rush through the school.
That's right.
So for people who don't know who Brigitte Belton is, let's start about Brigitte before she got all the recognition. So before the advocacy, before the convoy, before the truck driver, who was Brigitte?
Well, for a long time, I was a stay-at-home mom, raised 3 children. Then I started slowly entering back into the work as my children were older, and I went to drive a school bus. Then I got accreditation in fitness, and for
Right.
10 years,
Not just fitness though.
Zumba. Yeah,
Zumba.
I did. Yeah, I loved Zumba. I loved how the rhythms were. I taught about 26 classes a week, from regular Aquafit to Aqua Zumba, Zumba Gold, Zumba Kids. I was right into Zumba. I loved it. I still have all my discs and my workout wear from Zumba. I just loved it. It was great. I ended up blowing up my knee and having a heart issue. After 26 classes a week, my body wore out. So I had to do something more permanent. My 23-year relationship was on the rocks. And so I traded my life. My kids were older at this point, and I traded my whole world, my whole life, for a semi truck with my children's support. So I moved from an 8,000 square foot home to a semi cab with my dog, and started trucking.
Wow. So we do have similar stories, except Zumba was never in the cards for me because I am not coordinated enough. So I'm glad that one of us has that coordination. But so the marriage was on the rock. So you went solo. You didn't go with him or anything.
No, I literally left the house after my father passed, jumped into the truck by myself, and I had a place to live. I had the income I needed to support myself. I didn't think he'd be very helpful, and that's the way it went. So, yeah.
That's a transition. So
Yes, it was. It was like, wow, a 10 by 10 cell from, oh, I don't know, my bedroom used to be like 23 feet by 23 feet. So
how prepared were you for that transition?
actually, my first year of trucking was a disaster. It was, I guess people would call me a helicopter parent. I was always there for my kids. So when they call, I was 45 minutes away. I could help with whatever. I could move them. I could do everything. And when they call and I go, I'm kind of in North Carolina. I can't come. That was hard on me as a mom that really loves her children, loves spending time with them, and loves solving their world issues, which were really not that big when you've lived longer, right? But
Right.
their issues were, devastating to them at the time, and I couldn't be there. There was nothing I could do for them. So that was my first year was really hard learning to cut the umbilical cord for my children.
I get that. I do. I'm the same kind of mom, and I have an open door policy that my kids are welcome to bounce home at any time that they need to. If they need a reset, they need help. And they have utilized that when they needed. I give them that little extra support and give them their wings and send them back out. So, how did you cope with that first year? I mean, what did you do to ease that transition? Because a lot of women, when they're faced with that, they don't always have that resolve to make it through the cutting the umbilical cord, and they just jump back home and quit driving.
Well, I have to say, I started out at Schneider. My goal was to be with Schneider for quite a while. I learned though that they are pretty much a year company. You spend the year, you learn everything you can learn, and they give you an amazing resume at the end of the year. So um, I was lucky. There was a lot of support. There was support from the staff. There was support from those within the OCs. If you needed to talk to somebody, there was somebody there. And a lot of them were guys, right? So they didn't understand maybe the mom. I'm the mom. I need to be there, and they would help me work through it. There were tears. Sometimes it was just a hug from a guy that I needed. Just a hug. But and of course, most of them were guys. There were very few females, even back in 2015. And Canada even has a less number of women within the trucking industry than the US. So I had to rely on my male counterparts to get through a lot of the issues that I faced, listening to them. And it was really good. Without that support, I don't know if I would have made it.
That is good that you had that support. I had that as well with my training company. I started at Warner. And some people don't always have a great experience. And I had some ups and downs, but most of it was myself adjusting to the industry because it is very different from any other job. And it has a lot of different rules and way of doing things than a typical 9 to 5 job. But having that support is very important when you are isolated and away from home. So that probably is what made your first year become your second, third, fourth, 10th, 11th.
Right.
So
11th year now. Yes.
yeah, you got 2 years on me. So surviving your first year, that's awesome. But surviving your first week is even better.
My
So
first 3 days were tragic.
yeah, so everybody has their story, and I want to ask you what yours is. So, not your trainer time, but once you let go of that apron string with your trainer, and we have our first week by ourselves, it seems like everything we learned falls apart. I have
Yep.
my story. What was your story? Your horrible moment, your first week when you went on your own.
Well, it's funny. I ended up closing down an international border. My I did. I did. And it wasn't on purpose. It was lack of skill. um, I was crossing at Queenston, Lewiston, and they said to me, you're going to need to go to inspection. And I'm looking over at the inspection area and I'm like, I can't do that. And he says, why? And I'm like, I can't back up. And he goes, well, you're going to have to do it today. And I'm like, holy crap. Like I'm looking and there's posts on either side of where the truck goes in. There's overhang. I'm looking for all the stuff that you're like, right? And I'm panicking. I'm 3 days by myself. And I could get into big docks and, stuff with lots of room, but I'm looking at all these posts in the way and I'm like, oh, life is about to get bad. And in between those posts, you had to pull up over the roadway where the trucks that actually got cleared would go through. So if you weren't backing up in a timely manner, you were actually stopping border traffic. It was terrible. So I go through, I get onto their scale first and go through their scale and the x-ray, no problem. Then they have the parking lot on the side, no problem, right? I go inside and he goes, yeah, we're going to need you at the dock. And I'm like, that's a problem because I can't back up. And he goes, well, I guess you'll figure it out today. And I'm like, oh boy. And my trainers and my safety managers did me no service. So they had said to me, if you are having a hard time and you get overwhelmed, just get out, have a cigarette, and get back in. So about the third or fourth attempt, I'm like, okay, I just need a break. So I get out, I have a cigarette, I'm on the running boards, and I've got this female coming up to me saying, you need to get that truck in there. And I'm like, well, my trainer told me if I was overwhelmed. And she's like, I don't care what your trainer told you, get into the spot. And I'm like, well, the keys are in it if you'd rather do it. I was looking for any way to get out of it.
I'm done. I'm done. Right? Just go ahead.
I'm like, you can go ahead, right? Like, here, have at her. And so it ended up being a Polish gentleman that jumped on the side of my truck. And he goes, I'm going to tell you which way to steer. So just listen to me. You can look in your mirrors, but I'm going to tell you how to get in there. So pay attention.
As a disclaimer, never tell your company that somebody jumped on the steps of your truck while you were backing. Shh. And don't let anybody do it for you either. That's also a no. So, but he did. And I mean, I was literally puttering because, I was so afraid I was going to hit one of the posts on either side. And then with the doors open, I was even larger. So I'm like now really panicking. So he jumped up on the stairs and he actually did me a huge service because he taught me how to back that truck in between those poles and into the dock, because he didn't do it for me. He taught me how. So that was about 45 minutes of blocking the border, not intentionally. Just so everybody knows, it was not intentional. Yeah. When I was a trainer, I did not use that approach. I did not use the take a moment, take a breath. I did tell them if they got overwhelmed, because I had one girl cry. She got, was just super stressed. And when you get that emotional, absolutely take a break. But I always put mine in situations on purpose where they were either holding up traffic at a truck stop or something where people were honking and getting mad at them, so that they got used to that high pressure. Because I mean, honestly, being new, you're going to be slower. It's going to take you longer, and you're going to be causing, a delay for everybody else around you. So you might as well get used to the feedback you're going to be getting from it, because drivers are just in a hurry and they don't have the patience to wait 2 seconds, let alone 20 minutes or 45 at a very important border crossing.
You're right. And I mean, when I trained as well. I enjoyed that. I trained a couple of drivers. I really did enjoy that. But it would be turn off the radio, like, because I've always run with a CB. Turn off the radio. Don't listen to what's going on. These guys are going to say the most terrible things you'll ever hear about what you're doing. Turn it off. Don't worry about it. You focus on what you have to focus on. And the one thing I did teach a lot of my students, which I learned myself, was before you even get into the truck stop, start planning.
Yep.
You're on that ramp. Can you see the spot you want? Pick it, choose it, and don't pick the easiest one. Right. So, if you have to go to the bathroom in a hurry, use the fuel lane, go up, park ahead, not at the fuel island. Don't park at the fuel island, because I will yell at you, but pull up, park at the line and go to the bathroom and then do your spot. Right. Don't rush any of it. None of it has to be rushed. Nobody's dying. You don't have body parts in the back. You don't have to rush your day at all.
I taught an 8-minute rule. And I don't even know where the 8-minute came from that I got it, but I always said, if there's something you can do within 8 minutes, then go ahead and pull forward to that yellow line, park, go in. If it's going to take you more than that, then you're holding. And I think that's about how long it takes somebody to clean their windshield and fuel. If you're going to be in there longer than 8 minutes, then you are in somebody else's way. So park it. So I think the 8-minute rule is really important, and every driver listening should not be there longer than 8 minutes. That's no showers, people.
Right. I can say, honestly, I've never taken a shower while parked at the fuel island.
Me neither, but I have definitely been behind more than one and have had to back up out of the fuel island because of it. So it's definitely not something that everybody adheres to. But yeah, that's really important. I call it situational awareness. Know where you're going before you get there, and then you don't look like that guy that's turning in the lane that says no trucks.
Right. I do have to say, I've got caught more than one time behind someone, and I'm like, oh, they just put the hose into the tanks. I'm like, I can't wait. I'll pop the brakes, jump out, go to the bathroom, and I come back, and I'm like, where did he go? Like, he was here pumping.
Oh, I've done that.
What did he do? Put in 2 splashes and off? Did he just make it look good? And so I'm like, now I look like the bad guy. I wasn't. I literally went in, peed, and left.
I have done that too, and I'm sorry. I have no shame in that one. I'm sorry when my bladder says it is time to go, and it is if I hold you up for that 3 minutes, I am deeply sorry. But sorry. Now you guys have jugs, we don't. You guys can pee in the bottle real quick. We can't. So if I'm holding you up, it's okay. It's okay. I think that's only fair. I mean, there's a whole equipment difference there, and I think it's only fair if we hold them up for a couple minutes. I'll get over it. So good. Go around me. Just go around me. I never do that where I'm blocking like the entry or the flow of traffic, though. Just that.
No, I'm usually in the fuel line. I am going to fuel. And I've had a couple of guys cut in between me. I'm like, how did you do that without hitting something? Like, I didn't leave that much room.
Yeah. So as now you went out solo, you are like me, it's a career change,
Yes.
empty nester, and trucking is an animal. I mean, so how did you adjust to being a woman in this industry on the road, and what challenges that you think are gender specific, like that apply more to women than men, did you have to endure and overcome in the beginning? And still, I mean, we still have.
I don't know any guy that's had a woman go up and put her phone number in the back of her jean pocket while she's fueling. I've had that. My husband now, I remarried in 21. But my husband now has been on the phone with me, and there's guys that come up and go, so what are you doing later? Look, man, I'm doing the same job you're doing. I'm not sitting here for a booty call. So, I mean,
Right.
that's definitely different. Um,
They seem to
because
think that we drive during the day and lay on our backs at night, and that's not
well, we
how it
do,
works.
but we're sleeping, getting ready for the
Alone,
next
alone,
day alone.
alone.
Well, with my dog tends to jump in the bunk, right? So if there's movement going on, it's me and Mac, right? Like he's moving around. But yeah, no, I thought that was so strange that the men thought we were there to service them at night. And we're not. We have a job to do just like them. We do the same job that they do. I've done everything from flatbedding to reefer work and just dry van. So it's not that we're not untalented out here. We definitely are talented. We're definitely doing the job they are. And in most employers that I've had, they've said we are more attentive to the job, and we're a lot more careful. We tend to not want to get into certain situations, so we avoid them as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. We are definitely more aware of what we're getting into, and like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Right? I mean, I have a golden rule that because my backing was so bad when I first started, and I have to thank the guys at Schneider. They literally took me when we were at the OC. They would take me on their run with them and go, okay, back the truck now. I had a lot of guys and a lot of help with it was the articulation that just threw me. And when you move the tandems, I was like, oh my gosh. So I have a rule. If I don't know, don't go. So I don't back unless I 100% know I'm not hitting something. So
That's
and that's yeah, that served me my whole career so far. So
everybody else should listen to that rule. That's why most mirrors have that little sticker that says goal. Get out and look.
yeah,
Know where you're backing before you back.
right. But I mean, a lot of people can still do goal, but they don't realize their turn is not quite right. Um, and they used to call me the problem child at Schneider because of my backing issues. And I had one guy come out, one trainer, he come out and he set everything up. And he goes, you can get in there. And I'm like, there's literally a piece of paper between me and the other trailer. And he goes, you can do this. You've got it. He goes, I'm going to set you up. I'm going to tell you how to do it. And it was really funny because the one aspect I was missing was that your tandems are actually your X point right at
Mhm.
the center. So if you look between your two tandems and you turn at that point, that's your X. That's where you're turning to back up.
Yep.
Had that been explained to me, I could have been, I don't know, not so stressed for almost 6 months. But
Yeah.
it was just that one thing that resonated with me. And trainers have to understand that how one person learns, not everybody learns by. So you have to
Yep.
try a lot of different scenarios to see where your students click, where it
Yep.
works for them.
I would agree with that. And if my students that are listening to this, I have one. She was an older lady. She knows who she is, and she was very stubborn. And she learned by doing it. So
I had
it's
one student that needed to learn. It always had to be hands on. Like you had to show why something wasn't going to work. So the one day he puts his headphones through the steering wheel and puts them on. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, this could go very bad. So before we left the parking lot, I said, could you spin your wheels all the way to the right? And he went down like this. And I'm like, and that's why we don't put our headphones in through the steering wheel. And he just looked at me and I said, and we also don't drive with headphones on, so they need to go.
yeah, yeah. But they do try. They do try.
They try just about everything. And it's, if I can stress anything, listen to your trainer, even if you hate them. They're there to teach you how to drive, not be your friend. If they're your friend and not your trainer, they're not doing you a service. You can
Yep.
try and be both, but it doesn't always work.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to be the trainer above the friend. I have a lot of the students that I did train that we still talk. And the one thing they said was, you are the hardest cookie that I ever had to come across, but I'm good at what I do now. So
Same. Same.
if that's what I give to them, that's great. I don't train anymore. There's no need where I'm at, but it was an experience. And I feel for trainers out there, some of the students aren't ready to accept the training, but I'm also seeing trainers that aren't trainers. So if I see that, I try and help out. I caught
Yes.
one trainer with bad tires, and I was like, you can't let them drive like that. That's no.
Yeah. So, if you guys are getting into that training truck in the beginning of your career and your trainer is popping in the bunk while you're driving for the first time, then you need a different trainer. And
Absolutely.
most schools have like a student liaison in the training department now, specifically for that reason. If there's problems, and if you're not getting trained, then what's the point? You need trained. And when I started my career, that's what I had. I had two trainers, but my first trainer handed me the keys. We were in Illinois, and he's like, "All right, we're going to California. Wake me if you need anything." And
Oh, wow.
I was a wreck. But it was horrible. And he put me in some really bad situations. And finally, I was like, it took me a few weeks, but I was like, all right, I've had enough. Um, I am very, very much, this is very strongly opinionated about that. Trainers do not belong in the bunk at all.
Nope,
While
they
you're in
don't.
a training period, they need to be in the jump seat next to you, while you're navigating in the beginning. So that's very, very important.
And it was actually the company that I worked for. They teamed us training.
No, I hate that.
I hated it too, and I literally would break our shift so that I could get a couple hours sleep, and then I would run. So I would train all day, get a couple hours sleep, and then I would do my shift. As long as we could stay on our route and our timing, I would take, a couple of hours sleep. So I was exhausted by the end of a week because
Yeah.
I pulled, so many shifts. But I learned a lot, and that's partly why I'm not with that company in training any longer. It is because it's just insane to expect a trainer to be up almost 24/7 for a week.
Yep.
And I fought with them, and I lost. So I just moved on. But training was good. I loved the people. I love the fact that I got to teach them something that I had learned. And I didn't train until I was 2 years in the industry. So
Which is good. I think that should be the minimum, because you haven't encountered enough to, this being driving 6 months and throwing you in as a trainer, it's ridiculous. So definitely should not be allowed. So being a truck driver, we can talk about the challenges and all that, but there's a lot of good to it as well. I mean, I love being out
absolutely.
on the road. What are your favorite parts about it? And do you have like a favorite route or a favorite truck stop out there?
I like the truck stops, the larger truck stops where I can actually go and do and see something. So if I've had a busy week and I've been at the mom and pops, because I like mom and pops, and of course Loves, I do love them. However, they're changing their program soon, so we won't be as loving towards Loves. But I like going to at least one truck stop a week if I can, like Iowa 80 or Joplin, where I can actually move myself out of the truck and off the road and do something and look at something and possibly purchase something when I had my own cab, chrome, whatever. I mean, I'm probably one of the very few that asked for chrome for Christmas, but I get it. You know, but yeah, so I do like some of those larger truck stops for that. You also end up having still the conversations because they have the buffet houses, they have, the diners where we're all still at the table and you're talking with other truckers. That there still brings the camaraderie that we had back in 2015 when I first started. If I had an issue, I could go to that table and go, hey guys, this is what's happening. How do I fix it? It seems like our life has gone now to social media asking for help instead of those driver rooms. Those driver rooms were so important, and we lost so many of them
Yeah.
during the COVID pandemic, and it's totally just rerouted everything.
Yeah. So here in Illinois at Rochelle, we have the Petro still. And I love going in there and sitting at the booths right there in the driver's area. But you're right, we don't have many of those. And this is a great time to make that transition to post COVID because trucking has really changed since the times of COVID. And that's really when your advocacy started as well. So a lot of truckers went home. I was out here, you were out here. And being out here as a truck driver was very challenging, very hard. And we faced a lot of things that people who were not truck drivers can't understand.
Right.
No facilities, showers were shut down, restaurants were shut down. We couldn't bathe, we couldn't eat. And it was very isolating, even more than normal. And then came the mask mandate. And that's when you had enough, I take it.
It was a little bit further than that, actually. I mean, so at first, the first thing that happened for us cross border was they demanded our phone number and email address, and I was like, "Well, why? I have a fast card, which was approved by both Canada and the U.S. All the information you need is right there. Just scan the card." And they said it was for Health Canada. Well, PIAC, which is Health Canada, why did they need that information? Oh, because they were going to start sending me emails and calling me and harassing me as a cross-border driver. We didn't know that at the time. So they had told me that if I did not provide that information, they would hold me until I did. I was like, excuse me? Like, what? So that was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. And so I gave them my information. I was like, well, I'm not going to be held somewhere until I do. Right. So that was crazy. Then from there, it went to in February of 21, they said, you can't get out of your cab. I'm literally going from Ontario to Ontario, California. Ontario, Canada to Ontario, California. 10 days to 11 day, maybe 12 day even return trip because of ELD, right? And I can't get out of my cab. I looked at the guard and I'm like, so who's fueling my truck? Where am I going to the bathroom? Where am I walking my dog? Like it's ridiculous. And they actually sent me to secondary, where they started yelling at me for getting out of my cab, for not wearing a mask. And I'm like, I can't wear a mask. We had a big, long conversation. They wanted to take my temperature. It was February. I was out in just a sweater, right? And they're like, well, you're hypothermic. Yeah, no kidding. It's February and you have me standing outside my cab, right? And I was just like, it was terrible. And then the third instance, which was really severe, was again at the Windsor border, when they threatened to take my cab, my dog, my truck, like my trailer, my load, and incarcerate me, gosh knows where, and no determined time. It's not like I had broken the law and, there was a 6-month sentence, or we had no idea where I was going. We had no idea who I was going with, and we had no idea to where and for how long. Right. So that was the night I broke.
And that's a
And
lot worse than what we endured here in the United States because I mean, we got our temperatures taken and we were isolated, but we weren't isolated to the part where we couldn't get out and fuel and that sort of thing. We just
right.
had limited resources and there was a lot of interactions. You know, they put up plexiglass to keep interaction down. They went from signed bill of ladings to digital during this time period. There was a lot of changes like that. I did have to take my temperature quite a lot every time you
Yes.
pulled into a gate. And we were supposed to wear masks. I did not wear one in my truck. I would not. Sorry, not happening. It's only me
Right.
in here. Didn't see the point in that one. But we did not face the extreme levels that Canada face, and I am so glad of that. Thank goodness. I thought it was bad enough. And so I couldn't even imagine being, imprisonated for getting out of your truck.
Right. I mean, it's just so it's ludicrous because I mean, you have to fuel your truck. Nobody's doing it for you. That was not something that, they all didn't want us to congregate, but nobody was fueling our trucks for us. I mean, that would have been great if we didn't have to get out in January and fuel our trucks in Iowa.
Right.
That would have been
So
great.
what was the response to that? What was the response to, okay, you need these goods, but there are certain functions that we still have to do. We still have to fuel. What was the response to fueling? I mean, did they have a plan for that?
No, that was just her demand that we've been doing this for a year in February. And that was her demand. We've been doing this for a year. You should know better. And it all started because I declared a pair of jeans that I bought in New Mexico. Right. And I was just like, well, I ripped mine. I needed a new pair. I did the shopping while I was there. It was so silly. And for her to even do that. And I think the best part was she was wearing a mask, but she had no gloves on. Where does transfer usually come from? Your hands to your face, I mean, like I said, as a PSW previously, I knew these rules. I knew that if you're worried about transfer, your hands are covered.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to transfer before anything else.
Yeah, I went through a lot of gloves. I mean, in the beginning, I remember they were saying how long that they thought that the virus stayed on paper and
72
boxes
hours. Yeah.
for an extended period of time. So yes. And not wearing gloves. I mean, there you go. I mean, she's just going to transfer it from one item to the next, which is going to transfer it to the next person. So
Yeah, it
so
was kind of silly.
during this, somewhere in this period is when you finally had enough and you made a TikTok video. And that TikTok video kind of set the stage for the next part that we're going to talk about. What was that final straw for you? Where you just had your little
Just
rant?
um I was done with the 2 years of the lockdowns. I was in the US. I was watching you all walk around maskless purchasing at McDonald's. And I'm like, how is it different in the US than it is in Canada? And you'd have some Canadians, and I was just like, oh my Lord, are we cannot think for ourselves anymore. It's bad. They would say, well, that's in Michigan, not in Ontario. And I'm like, we're literally separated by a body of water, a bridge. Do you think the air is different in Michigan than it is in Ontario? Have you
Right.
ever seen what happens from a jet stream? Comes in through BC, drops into Colorado, comes back, drops into Ontario. Like, follow a jet stream. Have you ever watched the news? The air just keeps moving. It's not going to stop at the border. And if
Right.
it
It doesn't
contains
say, oh
virus,
no, that's Canada. We
oh,
can't go in
that's
there.
we're not
We
going
don't
there.
have our
Or
passport.
right. So I was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, is anybody attacking the Canadian geese that go south for the winter when they come back up here? Is somebody swiping them? Are they getting a COVID test? they're free to travel. It was just so bizarre. And even the I believe it was the CTA and the ATA were saying that we were not, as truck drivers, we were not a risk. We were on our own the whole time. So right around the time of the 16th of November in 2021 is when they started announcing that they were mandating the closure of the border between Canada and the US to non-vaccinated travelers. So I was like, okay, well, that's travelers. That's not me. I'm not a traveler. I'm working commercially. And then they said, but this is for the truck drivers.
Yeah.
And everyone was saying we were not posing a risk. I couldn't understand it. And my husband, I remember him telling me when we bought the truck, I said, oh, they're going to close the border. And he goes, no, not even during 9/11 did they close the border to Canadian truckers. He goes, we're essential. He goes, they're not going to do it. Then in
You're essential as
January,
long as you're vaccinated.
exactly. And then in January, they were going to close the border. And he goes, I can't believe they're doing this.
Yep.
Never. He goes, never in a million years would I have thought that they're going to close the border. So after that November incident, it was definitely I was done. I was so done. And for whatever reason, I did go to TikTok and make the video and reach out to other truck drivers because I had finally discovered that little search circle at the top, the spyglass, and put in truckers. And I found out TikTok was so much more than just dancing and jumping into cars. It was actually political commentary. There was truckers, there were dancers, there were women, there were a whole bunch of groups. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm discovering. And yeah, reaching out. The first person I remember talking with really that took me seriously was a woman named Maria. And I was watching her bake bread in her kitchen. And she was saying that she was giving this to her neighbors to bridge the gap between the vaccinated and unvaccinated. And I remember watching her and smelling, how you just have memory of smells. And I was smelling the bread baking, that, the yeast rising, just like my grandmother would have done in her kitchen. And she was from the East Coast and was willing to step up and help. And Cindy was another one. And then came Chris Barber. So he wasn't even the first trucker. He was like the third person in line that agreed to talk with this trucker. So, yeah.
So how did the Freedom Convoy? I mean, I know we're limited on what we can talk about, but was Chris Barber already working on creating the Freedom Convoy at this point, or is this where the talk started?
This is where the talk started on January 2nd is when Chris agreed to work with me. And I started sending him right away a whole bunch of people's names that were reaching out to me saying, yeah, let's do this. I said, look, we got another one in your area. And I'd send them off the contact information. Get with this person, talk to them, start creating your route. We weren't supposed to go to Ottawa. We were supposed to work together in conjunction with every city and town within a province with the truckers to make our voice heard. That would have worked wonderfully because it would have been in unison. The idea was to slow traffic, and people that were getting back to work wouldn't have wanted to have their day impeded by a bunch of truck drivers that were being sidelined. And it wasn't a few truck drivers. It was 10 to 30% of the Canadian industry.
Wow, that's a huge. So that's a big percent. I mean, anytime you can get truck drivers together to agree on something and unite, and because it is very challenging with as many drivers as there are out there. So, what was the energy like in the beginning? I mean,
it went from me planning my end, my demise, which I was working on, to saying we need to stop that for now because you aren't alone. You are not the only one out here suffering. There are many, many more. to this like energized environment. Like if I could relive that energy, it was fantastic. It was a constant, you know how you go to your favorite concert and you're just so excited? It was like that 24/7, right from the time it started picking up on January 2nd. It was
So,
phenomenal.
that's a pretty impressive feat. And a lot goes into organizing that. So, with the community, with logistics, with truck drivers, what was the most surprising to you about everything that was coming together at that time?
The fact that um, media was still very small between, the time we lifted off and the time we actually started rolling. The media was incorrect. I mean, we weren't, in BC, they were saying we were protesting potholes. Some may have been. It turned out it was actually a second convoy within BC that was protesting potholes, but it wasn't the Freedom Convoy. So it's kind of like, okay. And the coverage from east to west was very different. We were pegged as misogynistic people, unacceptable views. The government really tried to get people to hate us right away, and they hadn't even spoken to us. I would have been happy to speak to them and say, look, I'd be happy to save the fuel, get back to work. Here are our conditions. We need to either be supported financially, like every person that you've done, you've put out of work. Some were supported with CERB, others received UI at the time, and then there's many more that didn't, that I found out about later. But we were told if we did not get the vaccine, we didn't get unemployment benefits. We didn't qualify for CERB. So they were financially trying to break us into taking a vaccine. And I don't agree with that. I think that is over the top. That's a push that this is my body, it's my choice, and my autonomy does not belong to my government.
Right. Myself, I'm unvaccinated. And I medically, my doctor was like, we don't know what this is going to do. I have liver disease. He's like, absolutely not. So,
Right.
and because I was very much against, getting vaccinated. It's not that I don't have my regular vaccines, as a child growing up, but having a vaccine rush without knowing the side effects or anything else, it's very scary. And, no one wanted to address that. It's just like, here, take it. You have to. It's the rule. If you want to live a normal life, you want to do this, you want to do that, you have to. My son was in the military. He had to. He was forced to do it, being part of the military. And anytime you're forced to do something and you take away our choice, then it's an issue. We should
Well, and it
have
wasn't just choice. They were going to financially bankrupt you and
yes.
destroy your family. I mean, my household is 2 truckers. My husband and I got married in 21, and with 2 of us out of work, how do we keep the lights on? You don't.
Right. And that's something that Canada was a little bit different than the US, because you guys had unique hardships that were specific for Canadians. Losing your house, losing your truck. During the protests, you guys didn't have access to a lot of facilities. There was a lot that you guys endured that, in my opinion, were very extreme.
Well, and I mean, during the POEC testimony, we found out that one of our MPs suggested using a tank against us. I mean, that would have been Tiananmen Square all over again in Canada. That would have been ridiculous. Now, of course, they say, well, it was just a joke. Well, when you say how many tanks do you think we need? Oh, just one. I don't think that's any longer a joke.
Yeah.
that is something that you were seriously contemplating.
Yeah, you guys weren't armed. You weren't it's not like you were
No,
holding, them hostage.
no, we
You
weren't.
were using freedom of speech, and
Right.
your right to protest. So, looking back, we know how the toll on different people, what was the personal toll that it had on you individually?
I faced a lot of bank sanctions. So, my bank accounts were frozen. My husband, who was traveling, he was stateside when we went to Convoy. His bank account was frozen, and I was only the secondary on the account. They had said that wouldn't happen, so there was no funds available to even get me out of Ottawa if I wanted to leave. Right? So, you know, the police, I mean, they talked about taking our insurance. Well, you can't drive a car without insurance, or a truck without an insurance. They talked about taking our driver's license. Well, then you can't move a vehicle without a driver's license. They talked about you know taking the CVORs and the running authority of trucks. Well, then the trucks can't move. It was like they were trying to keep us there but make us look like the bad guys. It
Right.
was it was the most bizarre thing I'd ever witnessed in my life. I was laughing when these kind of reports would come out, and I'm like, do they even know anything about what we do? Like, they can't. They Because without any of this, we can't move. And I mean, you're taking our fuel. They stole thousands of gallons of diesel, and we had trucks that needed diesel in order to leave. It was just so bizarre. Um, and then personal tolls, of course, I've been targeted since. Fictitious tickets coming in the mail, like just random tickets. I've never been to this location, and I get a ticket in the mail. My son's also received one. Um, Phone calls at all time of day or night. Um, Still anywhere from 10 to 40 spam calls a day, because my information was released to whomever, put on a list. And I can't, just get another phone number because this is our business line. Um, so even though our business is not acting currently, this is the line that I have, family in Europe has, that if anything happens, they're going to call this number. So I can't just get rid of it. Um, and I can't call them because I don't have the service on this line. So I can't just up and change a phone number. Um, so that's aggravating. You've got it's just tons and tons of little things that add up all the time. I've lost my home in New York. I didn't get my US funds back that were seized until last August.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah. So, and it was just happened to be a couple of supporters that said, well, why haven't you got these funds back? And I said, they just don't want to deal with it. And they actually reached out to the bank and said, hey, what's going on? Why is the US account not sent back her funds yet? She has the letter. She's contacted you. Turns out they may have sent it via FedEx. And at that time, they just throw the FedEx envelope on the stairs. Well, I was out working, so
Okay, so
who got the
I don't
check?
yeah, so here's my question. Banks are audited, right? And I
Yeah,
have gotten checks before that were like 30 cents or something, a refund, and I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time, and I throw them away. But then
yeah,
a year later, I get a letter that says, "Hey, our bank just had an audit and this check hasn't been cashed."
right.
So, hello, you sent a more than 30-cent check via
It
FedEx.
was thousands of dollars. Yeah,
It didn't get cash and it didn't trigger anything during an audit. That's crazy.
it is crazy, and it was the US that kept that money, not the Canadian branch. So, and I still have fraud alerts on my Canadian accounts. Never committed fraud, never. And they're still on my accounts. Um, And every time I go to the bank now to cash a government check, a check that's issued by the government, they're like, well, we need to hold this for 10 days. Well, no, you don't. You need to cash the check. So anybody else that still has that, basically tell them to call the government number to verify the check, and they will cash it and give it to you right away. Because that's still happening. There are still people that are being sanctioned today because of what the government had done to us.
That is crazy. So, based
It is
on
crazy.
your experiences, you have added another title behind your name of author.
I
So,
have.
why don't, yeah, exciting. It's very exciting.
Well, and it
Uh,
took a long time because I'm driving full time. So you're doing 70 hours a week. And the only time you can write is when you're off or when you're stuck at a shippers and receivers. And sometimes, when the idea hits, I'm like, please let this take a little bit. I've got a paragraph, or I got a page and a half. I really need to get out. And so it was definitely interesting trying to write while driving, working full time, and we're long haul, we're over the road, so we're gone for weeks on end. So we don't have that home time that is so precious.
yeah, I can see that. So, what's the title of your book?
Consequences, and it's inside the Freedom Convoy series.
Okay. And so, what made you decide to write it?
It was actually therapy for me. So much had gone on. There was a lot of lies being told, a lot of people getting credit for things they had never done. And I was over the narrative that was being presented by certain media organizations and certain organizers or participants within the Freedom Convoy. And the narrative has to shift. We have to have truthful history, or we don't have history.
Correct.
You cannot support a false narrative and create that as history. That it's incorrect. So my book basically is my book, and my book series will basically be the truth on the origin, and what I experienced within my circle, within my realm. I can't go and talk about somebody else's realm that I don't know, but I can talk factually about what happened, what I participated in, what those around me participated in, and what they didn't participate in, and get the truth to those that are interested. If you're not interested in the truth and you're interested in and following the shiny nickel, that's fine. You have your following. That's where you're going to go. If you're interested in the truth and asking questions and investigating more, then you'll at least pick up the book and read it. You don't have to like it. I'm not asking you to
Right.
like it. I'm just asking you to discover history.
Well, and what I've learned about history as an adult is it's all based on perspective, right? And the
Exactly.
perspective that they want you to know. So, being able to provide the driver's perspective is crucial to understanding all parts of what went on. Media shines one version, the government has their version, and then the drivers that actually participated have their version. And your version is something that doesn't get enough attention. The actual what happened to the drivers individually, and the hardships that you guys encountered, and why it was important enough for you guys to stay in it. I mean, it's what you guys endured was worth. Or, well, let me ask you, was it worth it? Do you think that what you've dealt with, the fallout from it and the consequences are still worth the protests and the convoy?
Been asked that several times, and it really depends on where I am personally in my life, what my answer is. um,
When I'm looking
I
at a
mean,
bank account with no money in it, I might no, not
right?
today.
Well, and I mean the fact that I'm still being sued millions of dollars because people don't like trucks in Ottawa and don't like honking, and blamed me for what every other guy that wasn't following what we asked him to do, and the fact that I wasn't even involved in some of those decisions because of certain things that had happened. So I'm being held accountable for people's actions that I didn't approve of, people's actions that I didn't support, and wasn't even in on the conversation. So you kind of got to laugh, otherwise you'd cry. But yeah, was it worth it? I'm here today because of it. So
Okay. So maybe the
that
question
is
shouldn't
that
be
is yeah,
instead of asking, was it worth it? Let's ask, did you make a difference?
I did. I
Okay.
made a
And I think that,
difference. Yeah, there are people that constantly say, without you, without the convoy, I wouldn't be here today. You saved me. And I look at them and I go, you weren't alone in that feeling. And it was all of you that got excited that saved me. So we saved each other from how we were feeling, the hopelessness, that we were alone. We did that together. That wasn't me. That, like, so many of them don't realize they saved me because of where I was at that point of my life.
right. And that's important. I hear a lot of drivers say, oh, truck drivers won't come together. But the Freedom Convoy is a great example of how they do come together. And you guys didn't just have the convoy in Canada. I mean, we put on our own convoy to support you here in the United States. And that
You
was pretty
absolutely
exciting.
did. Well, it
Yes.
was. And I heard from you guys almost immediately. There was a car carrier out of Washington who was like, we're not going to be able to bring cars anymore. Like, this is important. I'm like, well, join us on the other side of the border. And it did. And I do have to say, you did it in American style. You had planes, you had people flying and jumping out of planes. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, just do us up there. Thanks.
Yep.
But I mean, it was joyful to watch your convoy
Yeah. And
and
it
all the
wasn't just
things
the
that you did.
drivers, but the community involvement over every overpass, I mean, was just spectacular. I mean, because it
It
wasn't
was
just
the
drivers.
same.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was the community, and seeing the community come together, the truck drivers come together, it was so inspiring.
I watch videos still from us leaving and going to Ottawa with the overpasses full, the Canadian flags. I've never seen so many Canadian flags, not even on Canada Day, like our Independence Day. Um, there, when it got dark, they lit them up with glow sticks so we could see them. There were
Oh,
campfires at the side of the road and snowmobiles going around those with Canadian flags. There were construction equipment put on the side of the road with the buckets up, people sitting in them, waving flags. I've never seen anything as a Canadian so patriotic in my whole life. We had gone into Wyoming truck stop in Sarnia, which is where I left from. That place was one lane in and out. There was no room between trucks and cars. There was no room to move. I'd never seen a Canadian truck stop so busy, ever.
wow.
It was
That is crazy.
it was amazing. And the amount of times I got asked for a picture in a bathroom, I swear, I kept saying, I gotta go. So just a minute, let me go, and then we'll get the picture. But there's got to be like, I don't know, 100 pictures of me in the bathroom hugging somebody. Excuse
So,
me.
do you know the song Convoy by C.W. McCall?
Mm, I'm terrible with names, but
The trucker song Convoy, they need an updated one for the Freedom Convoy. And I don't think I've heard one, but we do have an old song from the convoy way back when they were wanting to do tolls. So I think we
oh,
need a
right,
trucker song for the Freedom Convoy,
right.
so well, So I posted the link here on the video part of the podcast. If you're listening by audio, it's www.inside-fc.com. FC for the
Freedom Convoy.
Freedom Convoy. So if you want to purchase her book, you can do so there. Where else is it available, Brigitte?
Actually, it's not available on the site. You can get it at Amazon, Books a Million. That's the site, though. You can go there to read more about it. But you can get it at Amazon, Books a Million, pretty much where books are sold, Barnes and Noble. The site will give you the full list. And it's not that expensive in the US. It's $15.99 plus shipping and handling and taxes. So about $20 it comes out to, depending on if you have Amazon Prime or just regular Amazon.
And this is the first book, but you're going to do a series, correct?
Yes, this is a series. And the series, the next one will be all about the convoy.
Okay, so look forward to that. So, is there anything else as we come to a close here about life on the road, the human side of the convoy, anything else that you would like our listeners to hear or that you would like to share before we close out?
You know, as a woman driver on the road, this was amazing to see my brothers and sisters come together. So just remember that we do have a voice, and it's important that we support each other.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So anything else coming down the pipeline for you moving forward that we can expect besides the book series?
Not currently. I am working towards Delilah's Law here in Canada. I will be asking that the U.S. implement the non-English speaking clause at the border so that you don't have approximately 60,000 Canadian drivers that potentially don't speak English entering the U.S. And there's some really good people that I know in the U.S. That I made contact with while I was at Matt's. So
that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot that.
Yeah. So and a longtime advocate that I've worked with before, Matt. We had a conversation because we used to have NADRA together. And we're looking forward to moving this forward. And I talked to Shannon, and it looks like this is going to be fast tracked through the US. So by adding a little clause about how the Canadian drivers need to also be able to speak English if they're entering your country. Yeah, it's important, and it's long overdue.
And what people don't realize, it's not a fluency issue. It's a understanding. You know, they have to be able to read signs. And when you live in an area, say like I live in central Illinois, most of the signage here is your normal signage. But then when you get out of this area and you get into mountains or you get into other states, they use marquees now with changing messages. And these alert you to accidents. They alert you to weather. They alert you to construction. They alert you to road closures. You have to be able to read those signs so that you know what is going on and you can react. And
it is very important. Yes. And if you can't understand English fast enough, even if you understand some English, but you can't grasp what's happening fast enough, you're rolling faster than your comprehension.
Correct.
So it is very important that we do, whether we're teaching these people more English, but until they have the ability to understand the signs and react, they need to be sidelined for a little bit.
Yes.
And I'm not opposed to them being taught. They can't be taught while they're behind the wheel. It's very dangerous. In Canada, we have an accident on our major 401 highway every day. Is that lack of skill, lack of comprehension, lack of ability. we need to look further into that. And we also have a lot of the drugs being moved from Canada to the US by those that may be non-domicile here on visas. That needs to stop as well.
Yeah. So we are closing up here, everybody. Brigitte, thank you very much for popping on the show today. Again, there's her book. Thank you for having it up there. Consequences. Again, it's available on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Good luck, Brigitte. It was great seeing you. I'll be talking to you soon. Everybody else, thank you for stopping by Trucking with Tamie today, and we will see you next week.